but does that matter?
Okay, go ahead. You're on.
Well, Kathy, what do you say we kind of look at some timelines that we had in regards specifically to the proposal of land exchange on the Palouse district, and maybe mention some of the other important characters
I think
as
that's
far
a great
as
idea.
Nespers is concerned, and Ingrams and their involvement in this down Nespers, down at Grangeville. So I had put together kind of a timeline, an outline, and I know you can fill in a lot of places because the Palouse Ranger District, Friends of the Palouse Ranger District, have done so much on looking up the backgrounds of these people on a computer and finding out things that us ignorant, the seven dwarfs, the seven retirees, we didn't have the skills. We didn't develop those kind of skills, and you gals have really done a great job on that.
Thank you, John.
But some of my stuff is from newspaper articles. I don't know the validity of some of it, but that can be researched.
So should we start with tell the people how the land came into the ownership, and what we've uncovered is how it was owned, and what we've found is that TWJ Holdings actually purchased this land back November 5th of 2005. And TWJ Holdings, as we've found, his ownership of Tim Lochsa, also the developer of the Yellowstone Club, quite notorious for dealings, and James Dolan, and it's listed as Voyager Group LP on their website, claims that they own Western Pacific Timber also, and the agent listed was Andrew Hawes. And all three names are the exact same in Western Pacific Timber. We're not sure when TWJ Holdings transferred into the name of Western Pacific Timber, sometime in 2006, when Tim Lochsa approached the Forest Service about doing this land exchange, and they've said that Western Pacific had acquired this land for the purpose of doing this land exchange.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because I think Blitzeth was up front as far as the newspaper articles that I read in 2005, where it said, quoted him as, the article said, timber tycoon and developer. That was a quote from the news article that I have. Purchases checkerboard lands from Plum Creek for trading, for the lands that could be developed. And that's kind of interesting. So already, as far as the appraisal is concerned, you can see that appraising this as forest land is preposterous.
Yeah, because the reason he's doing this exchange is, we've been told repeatedly that he bought this because he is a developer, and he's showing a clear track record of being a developer.
Okay. So first, according to our understanding from Supervisor Riley, retired Supervisor Riley, first he tried to acquire some land around McCall.
Yes, yeah.
From Region 4, and their response was, we don't want anything to do with it.
Flat out, no.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then he tried to get some up around Priest Lake or somewhere in that vicinity on the Panhandle. Yeah. And finally came to the Clearwater with directions from the Chief of the Forest Service. Now this is according to Mr. Riley at a Tri-County Commissioners meeting down in Lewiston. According to Mr. Riley at that meeting, says he was told, make it happen. Yeah. And that's what he intended to do.
Yeah. To
make it happen. So like you said, in 2005, he tried to get this land. It's interesting, in a September 3 news article, September 3/07, Potlatch Corporation purchased from WPT,
Western Pacific Timber.
Western Pacific Timber, either 179,000 or 177,000 acres around McCall from Lochsa for about $215 million. Now remember that that a couple of execs from Plum Creek came to Potlatch, I think in the early 2000s, and they had managed the upper Lochsa. And now they're purchasing land from Tim Blixeth. And Tim Blixeth bought the land in the upper Lochsa. I don't think that they, I think there's a connection there. I'll let somebody else put it together. But anyway, it was an interesting. And Potlatch, of course, now is a real estate investment trust. And if you were talking about exchanging like lands for like lands, how would you exchange timberlands owned by the Forest Service for development lands owned by a real estate investment trust? Therefore, WPT, a timber company, comes in to make the exchange look
They
legal.
call themselves a timber company,
Yeah.
but and we don't know yet when they transferred from TWJ Holdings into Western Pacific Timber. But it has to be a timber company to make the trades, from what I understand. And TWJ Holdings sounds like a development company, and so it's been at some point was transferred to that under this exact same ownership.
Well, about 2000, somewhere around 2006, then Mr. Riley told us, Supervisor Riley told us that they tried to find agencies that would support, and groups that would support this exchange, not that would oppose it. So those that were involved in that were like BLM, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and WPT, and the Forest Service. And they also talked to the Nez Perce tribe in regards to gaining support. But so for 2 years before anything ever
Before they told the
happened,
public.
Well, it was even longer than 2 years. But in September of '07, representatives of WPT, I think it was Hawes and Disney, and maybe somebody else, accompanied Teresa Trulock of the Forest Service on a tour of the various lands that they would like to look at for development, for exchange. And these are some of the lands that they looked at. First was Mary Minerva McCroskey State Park. I don't know that was the order that they went to, but
Mary Minerva State Park, if you can point to that, John, in that area, on the maps was clearly not marked, so the public is unaware that these parcels are intermingled with the park parcels, making them premium development land, because you could actually have a housing development and live right amongst a state park.
Yeah, it's very, this map, that brings a very good point, because this map was printed by WPT, by Blixeth. It's not a Forest Service production, and therefore the only ownership that shows on this is adjacent National Forest lands, Clearwater National Forest, state, which is the dark blue, and Fish and Wildlife, national parks, not federal, not state park, BOR, Bureau of Reclamation, and other federal agencies, and all the rest of it is.
But they're not.
It's not
there's
shown.
no state parks clearly marked,
No.
and down here, if you can point to that, John, the Dorshak Dam State Park borders that particular parcel, making that parcel extremely valuable.
And
It's right next. You just go in by Freeman Creek.
for development.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
very
development.
high value development
And Mr. Otter, our governor, wanted to close this state park, and
he was successful at closing that park, and Gary Schroeder was credited with being instrumental in reopening that park.
along with the county commissioners
And the
in
county
Clearwater,
commissioners from Clearwater County.
got that reopened. But that would have, and they also talk about selling state lands, you know, to make up for the deficit that the state has. But should that have been closed and sold, that becomes an extremely valuable
Yes.
piece of property. And curiously enough, right next to that is Potlatch Corporation.
Potlatch Corporation and its Army Corps of Engineers actually owns this land throughout here, including, I understand that they actually own the park land.
Okay.
But it makes that particular parcel extremely valuable, as is the parkland up there, which is totally unidentifiable for the public to know.
And I would have to say that that as Teresa was showing these people around, Teresa knows little, if anything, about Merriman or McCroskey State Park, or any of the particulars about how these lands have been managed by the Forest Service. We're strictly going there, and you'll find that most of these lands, including up here, butt up against Potlatch Corporation in one way or another. And what we found, I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to stay with the timeline for a minute. Anyway, these lands were picked out in September of 2007, and public totally ignorant of anything that was going on. Nothing. Didn't know anything.
So to start with, the Forest Service should have approached the public immediately and said, this is what we're looking at possibly doing.
Yes.
How do you feel about it? But the public was they were totally left out of it, even though this is land owned by the public.
And the Forest Service on their website has what they call a quarterly report of what their projects are. And they call it the SOPA. I don't know what that SOPA stands for, but I'm sure one of my colleagues could tell me, because I never messed with the SOPA. But this should have appeared on the SOPA, and it did not appear until the public had been already aware of it. That's a very interesting fact. But now, nothing was done illegally. Nothing's been done illegally by the Forest Service, because this is the way they've operated in the past on these land exchanges as far as the public is concerned. Consider, this is the only irretrievable, irreversible action that the Forest Service takes. You know, land management, nature can heal. I mean, you still own the land. When you no longer own the land, no say in it. And to have something that is as secretive as land exchanges as far as the public is concerned, not illegal, but certainly not informative. So here, this was 2007 when these lands were picked out with no knowledge by the people that picked it out. And I think Lisa's letter reflects that. The district was coerced. Excuse me, cross that out. The district personnel were very concerned about the way these lands were picked out, how they were coerced into identifying parcels of land for trade. When the people that were doing the coercive action knew nothing about these lands and didn't want to know anything about them. That's the part.
Well, these lands look like they were hand chosen because the locations are so incredibly accessible.
Well,
they're
of course,
very, very accessible for the public everywhere.
They were chosen to be developed, or they were chosen because they were adjacent to Potlatch Corporation lands.
Yeah, when
I
you
mean,
look,
there's-
when you take out the actual Forest Service maps and look at the maps, you can clearly identify the boundary properties around them.
Yes,
Unlike the maps that were provided to the public, which are extremely poor. This one's far better than the maps that the general public has seen.
oh, yes, yes, and this was done for an express purpose, to hide that.
Tom,